First of all, I just want to say thank you for everybody who's tuning in, and appreciate you guys for letting me come on and speak. This is one of my favorite things to do. I have some interesting stories that I think that I'm willing to expand upon and share, and I think that they can be really helpful to the Harrisburg University community, of which I'm an alum. Um, it was about 8 years ago that I set off on my master's in project management from Harrisburg University. Um, and I had a fantastic experience. I'm from Harrisburg, so I'm native to the area, and my family is still there. So there's like the roots are still strong. And so like for the group today, there's a lot of high school students who are probably tuning in, and my hope today is to maybe take some interesting aspects of my career and how I got to the point that I am, and provide some insights that could maybe help you as you're choosing the college that you want to go to, make career choices, maybe even kind of figure out what it is that you're actually interested in. And these are all really important questions because they have really big ramifications, both professionally and financially, and they're important to sort out. The earlier that you are able to sort these things out, sometimes the better, that more smooth they go. So there's a couple of different things I wanted to share, and what I've done is distill down three really important values, things that happened during my career that I felt it was important to share. And I can kind of explain the story of my career in context to each one of these things. The first being that you should set your bar higher than what others do for you. And it's a really important kind of cliche type of thing, I know, but it's I feel probably one of the most important things that happened at the very beginning of my career that set a bunch of things in motion. The second thing is that you should fail fast and fail early. This idea of failure is kind of embedded that it's a bad thing, and what I think you need to do is kind of tease that out. And I've found that failure has been a really important aspect in developing out success. And then the last thing is that you should spend a little time designing out your life. And, I'll explain more about that, but it actually gets summed up very eloquently in a book by Bill Burnett called Design Your Life. And it goes into this idea that, there are different aspects you can pull together that help you align the things you love, what you're really passionate about, with your work life and with your work view and your life view, and that these things, when you bring them together, you can have some pretty cool effects. So the first part that I want to get into is how we set our bar high, and I kind of want to back up to a point where I was graduating high school. I had this vague idea that I wanted to get into computer science. I didn't really know what it was all about, but I was gung ho. Enrolled at Lycoming College, and I wasn't a very good student. So, for as successful as I've been in my computer science career, when I first graduated, I didn't really have a full conception of what it was actually like to be a computer scientist. I had to really reevaluate my work ethic, my leadership skills. I had to reevaluate my skill sets. So, I graduate with kind of an abundance of overconfidence, and I was hired by Target Systems, working as a Department of Defense contractor, and I was happy that they took a chance on me. But looking back at the time, I didn't necessarily have those priorities straight, and so some of the things that I was building, I wasn't quite keeping up with some of my peers, and so I had to really reevaluate my work ethic and my leadership and how I was affecting people, and my projects, and that led me down a road of this idea that I need to set my bar higher. That just because I graduated from high school or graduated from college or that I even got a job, that it was kind of like an end all be all. And the fact is, the thing that people get wrong is that it's an iterative process. And I used that idea to make the decision to go back to Harrisburg University. I started a business. Um, I tried out maybe like a few different industries or a few different projects, um, and I was effectively trying to figure out, how can I build myself up in a way that can help me be valuable to some of my other teams. And so, like, this idea of it being an iterative process is very important. And I know that that doesn't necessarily have to do with my computer science background per se, but that's kind of the point. Probably some of the most important things that have affected my career don't have to do with my technology skill set at all. And that's where my thinking changed. That I graduated from a computer science degree, and I thought, oh great, now I have this computer science degree. Now I should be able to go get any job I want, and I was a little fearless. But that's not the case. It's not the case at all. And as many people have seen through this COVID transition, there are many different industries and professions where the jobs and the skill sets were went through a little bit of an upheaval, but there were many companies that actually grew during this period. Um, no different than right now. We're using live video streams, and for some, it was kind of just embedded in what they did. But there are many people who ended up coming to this awakening, like, oh my goodness, like this is just like I'm not comfortable with these skill sets, and everybody kind of has those moments. That's where the iterative process really comes into play. Once you learn a new set of skills, it's time to move on to the next one, because the industry that you choose is not going to stay static. It's not gonna pause just because you've reached a point where, like, oh okay, yeah, I kind of get this. This is great. Even in my computer science career, for those of you who are planning on becoming maybe software engineers yourself, um, the way I build software has changed dramatically 5 times over the course of my 15-year career. 5 times, where I've literally had to take entire swaths of processes and perspectives, um, and throw them out the window. Like they just completely changed. 15 years ago, the idea of cloud technology did not exist. And as you can imagine, um, completely changed the way that I look at my career itself. And it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. Setting the bar higher for me was also becoming a better leader and affecting others in a way that I hadn't necessarily before. As a software developer, I was very focused on the program that I was building. Or maybe you have a project at work, you're very focused on the technical contributions to that project. But then as your career grows, for me, it was become from transitioning from computer scientist to an IT executive and leading not just a development team, but actually an organization that needs to make money and hire people and keep their jobs and take on more work and grow. That change, that leadership change, involves an entirely different set of skills. But it still requires you to have and rely on the technology skills that you had before, because those are the ways in which you're able to make your company grow and move faster, be competitive. Um, the fact is that no matter what industry you go to, you're going to have to take on new technologies that maybe you weren't necessarily comfortable with before, or that challenged the processes that you had before. And that's okay. That's part of process. So anyway, pulling back to this idea of setting your bar higher than others do for you is an important thing. And for those of you who are in high school right now, and really not reevaluating, evaluating where you want to move on, it's an important thing, because chances are there are several aspects where you may need to look in the mirror and say, could I do this better or that better? I know I did, and I know that there are many others as well. So, number two, there's this concept in computer science called fail fast and fail early. And I'm going to use it a little bit differently here. What I mean by failing fast is to take risks. I think it's important to fail fast and fail early. To pull from my experience, when I finally realized, what, I have some experiences or I have some missing gaps in my experience. I set out to start a business. So I decided one day, what, I'm going to start a business. And sure enough, that first business, it failed. We didn't even answer that basic question of how are we going to make money? It's a really important question if you're going to start a business. Nobody had told us, and we failed, and that's okay. From there, set out to go to grad school, and I did okay. It was a lot better than my undergrad. I was taking steps towards the career goals that I was looking for, but I wasn't necessarily at the point where I was able to take on large scale projects. The first time that I set out after I received my project management degree from Harrisburg University, luckily, some people gave me a shot, and I tried to roll out and organize teams. My process really wasn't ironed out, and it took, years of practice, but that's okay, because, when you're in your 20s, you're able to fail at these things, and you can kind of dust yourself off. The other thing that I'll say is the failures themselves are only good if you're able to use that in order to propel yourself towards success. So like I from there, I didn't necessarily just say that, what, I don't know how to run a business. I was able to answer that question, and it didn't stop me from moving forward. What it meant, though, was there's a little bit of a gap here that I need to figure out what it is that's going to help me to propel myself forward and organize my thoughts around how to run a business better, maybe become successful. So I went off and decided to get my MBA. That was very helpful for me. I ended up graduating from Shippensburg University with my MBA, and what I learned was additional leadership skills. I learned like how to manage finances. I learned aspects of team management that I had never really applied when I was solely focused on just building software. And so I was beginning to expand my horizons, all because I decided to move forward from those early failures. And at that point, there was this conscious decision about, like, what am I really excited about? And I'm hoping, or like what I, at least like the third bullet point that I wanted to share with you, is that there's this idea of designing your life, that you should become acquainted with things that you're passionate about. And as I finished out my MBA, it just so happened that I figured out I was passionate about teaching people how to code. That when I would wake up, or the things that got me excited on my software development teams, it usually was surrounded by those moments where I was helping my teammates learn new technologies or learn new skill sets, and then seeing them succeed. That's a really important point. I get the term designing your life from the book by Bill Burnett, who is he's a professor at Stanford University, and their design thinking lab pulls together these different design principles that into this singular book, the single class, to help people discover what it is that makes them excited about life. That during your day, asking yourself the question, when are you in the zone? Like, what parts of the day? Like, what are you doing? Become aware of that. And the exercise in the book, something that I actually took to heart, was drawing out what I want from life. Could I segment out different parts of my life out on the board, sketch them out, and draw out different versions. I think the most insightful thing that I learned from that book, and that I like sharing, is that there's no singular version of yourself, that you can play out multiple different versions of yourself, and they all could look different. You could live somewhere different. You could work somewhere different. And so there's a little trick that I kind of learned from all this. You draw these segments out. You kind of pick the ones that you best like. And then from there, what you should do is identify people, organizations that align with those ideals, those thought processes, and connect with them, ask them questions, meet up for coffee. What I found is that successful people, maybe like in your different industry, love answering questions and passing it along, and with the intent that hopefully someday when you move along and you take on success, that you're able to turn around and pass that back. That's an important quality, because it means that you can keep the cycle going. And so what I've learned is that there are some people in my career that I reached out to, and I would ask them for career advice. What should I do? I have these types of interests. And I said, if you are really dead set on running a business, you should know that it is not glamorous. Everybody hears about the life of $1 million companies and valuations and wealth, but really it's about grinding out sales calls and being up late, answering email, handling a lot of different things that you wouldn't necessarily realize unless you go through the motions of attempting to start a business. And so the advice that I've gotten along the way has been really invaluable. And here's another trick. Go online, set up your LinkedIn profile, put it together. You may not have a whole lot if you're at, in your high school career, but you've got to get started. And over time, you're going to continue to add to that repertoire. You're going to continue to add to your resume. And that's important, because you're going to be able to use that to network and to connect with other people who are within the industry that you're looking to be a part of. I've recommended to others that if you're able to use your LinkedIn profile a little bit better, be more proactive with it, chances are you'll increase your chances at reaching a job maybe that you like, or down the line, if you foster those relationships, and maybe you do start a business someday, that you're able to use those relationships to help network and build up sales. So these are all really important objectives, or values that I've used at least along in my career. So just to kind of like recap those things, like make sure that you're setting your bar really high, and that you continue to do that, learning new skill sets and really expanding out your perspective, that you fail fast and fail early. So we can't be scared of risk. Everything in learning new is there's inherent risk in that. That's okay. And that will help you out. That will make you feel better, or that will help improve your skill set value moving forward. And then last but not least, spend a little time designing out your life, kind of sketching down the things you want to grab out what interests you, and stick to it. Because if you can align your life to the principles, the values, the things that you are excited about, you're going to have a lot of success. Because naturally, people around you are going to feel that, and you shouldn't dismiss that. Um, just to kind of bring some of those concepts together, I wanted to share some of the things that I've looked for when hiring other individuals onto my team. So kind of like flipping this around a little bit. The first thing is obviously like, what have you organized? Have you kind of prepared and organized yourself when you're presenting yourself to the organization or to the people that you're trying to network with? These are good opportunities in order to practice weeding out mistakes, managing or updating your questions that you're looking for, maybe getting yourself presentable so that you're able to engage and really set the stage to help propel you forward. Without those things, without that practice, you're probably not going to be very good at it. Everything involves practice. That includes interviewing. That includes listening and taking advice. That includes putting that advice to action. And the more times that you do that, so if you get involved and you actively do that, as you reach out and you're taking notes and you're putting yourself out there, you're going to get a lot better at it over time. That's important. The second thing that I look for, when I am helping others out, is, have they prepared themselves? Do they kind of know what it is they're getting involved with? When I first started as a computer scientist, I really did not, I kind of had this vague notion that, I was good at programming, but I had no idea what being a software developer actually meant. And you should check that out, that if you have a career path that you want to take through college and you want to maybe extend out for the rest of your life and you want to be passionate about, it's important that you spend a little time organizing and investigating, what is this about? What is the company that you're applying to about? How do they relate to the path that I want to go towards? Sometimes the industry doesn't even necessarily matter. Other times they may. For me, I was attempting to, just to give you an example, not that there's anything necessarily special about it, but I bounced around from the Department of Defense to insurance, to higher education, to energy management. Been out in different locations. What I found was, pulling myself out of that bubble and inserting myself into different things ended up helping me kind of discover what I'm passionate about. And I couldn't quite decide if it was really cool technology, or if it was leading new technology teams, or maybe it was about having a mission-oriented company, like when I worked with Bright Power as their director of applied technology. Being attached to the mission, it was very exciting to me. I decided that my mission, my internal mission, was to really kind of bring a lot of these things together. And that's why I've landed at Nearly Human AI. Now I get to do pretty much all of these different things. And so I've kind of come full circle, and it takes time. So trust the process. That as long as you are iterating and you're not necessarily going for a home run, right away, that you just continue iterating through these things and you do it quickly, chances are you're going to set yourself up for success, that you are going to reach the point where you start to have success. Now, it's important to build on that. But anyway, I guess, like, in conclusion, I'm hoping that if any of you have a chance that you want to reach out and you want to ask me questions, I am available to help whomever needs those types of advice and things like that, and help with their career. Now, I'm willing to take questions if you'd like.
What advice would you give to yourself, your past self, if you had the opportunity to?
That's a great question. I like that. If I had to give myself some advice, it would to be a little bit more organized. I think I was a little bit all over the place when I was coming out of college, and I didn't necessarily have very many goals. So the premise there being that maybe I should have been more focused on organizing my studies and organizing really where I wanted to take things, organizing my contacts and networking.
All right, awesome. So if someone's interested in starting like a small business or a business of any kind, do you have any advice for how they should get started?
Oh yeah, I do. First, you should ask yourself if you are willing to go through the grind, suffer through the grind, to maybe not be successful. So that is like a really important thing, that it takes some time, late nights, a lot of work, weekends, sometimes you have to give it up. If you're willing to do that, all right, that's like step one. Second thing that I learned, you should ask yourself the question, how am I going to make money? Like, how does this business make money? Every business, you set it up, needs to have a way to actually sell goods or services. That's the whole point of a business. And if you don't have that, you're going to be in real trouble. That happened to me when the first business that I started was called Blue Briefcase, and LinkedIn had just started, or it was just starting to mature, and this idea of social media had just come out a couple years, maybe like 2 or 3 years after Facebook had started. And me and my team, our idea was that, what if we had a professional social media site that centered around the idea of business cards? Oh yeah, this is a really cool idea. Everybody be part of it, and like this would be fantastic. And then we got a few people on, and it was great. We were running it, but then the question is like, how are we going to make money? It's like, oh, we'll just get people on the website. But yeah, like, how are you going to make money? And because you can't just keep paying for stuff, and as it grows, you're not going to be able to bring on, when you hire new employees, they want to get a salary, they want to get paid. If your company isn't growing, then you can't pay for those resources. The money's got to come from somewhere. So that is a little bit of an anecdote, and sure enough, like we kind of failed, despite having a great team, and we had the work ethic and the energy, and what could have been the idea. Even then, Facebook was struggling with the exact same problem. So like, that was not a Blue Briefcase problem. It was how do we monetize this scaling of social media site, which was not a business model that people quite understood at that point. They do now. So like, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and some others have followed suit, and they've been able to monetize. But they've been able to monetize in terms of through that scale. So you got to have a plan. I mean, seriously, like and then the last thing I'll say is, you better be passionate about that business, because that's going to be your life. If you're spending all that time and you're giving up all of that, your resources, your money, your time, you better be sure you love it, because that it's going to monopolize. I kind of think about it like, going to the gym and exercising like one muscle, is, you're just like exercising that one muscle for, months on end. And it's just like you're dedicated to like one thing. That's hard.
Yeah. Well, that's some pretty good advice, though. So another question for you. So you've talked a lot about, these different, going back to school and all the degrees and, how you need to make sure that you're kind of on top of making sure that you have the most up-to-date information. You're constantly learning. How do you make sure that you're always kind of on top of what's new and what you need to be paying attention to that's the newest technology or newest skill?
The way that I handled that is twofold. There's two things. One is continuing to read and staying active. Like it's not a passive thing. You have to be active, and you have to read. The second thing is having those support resources, those 2 or 3 people that you really admire that are kind of like a couple steps ahead of you, and paying attention. Figure out like what they're doing. How are they hacking their processes? Like, what are the tools that they're using? What makes them better than other people? Do they do something faster? Do they understand something better? You got to take it really seriously. Like those people that you kind of have in your circle, because we all have a very finite, very limited group of individuals that influence us, and you got to pay attention to that. If you don't, it would become very difficult, right? Like if you're not reading or actively like looking for ways to stay ahead, you're probably not going to stumble upon it until like a COVID event, right? Like that, there are people who basically ran into a brick wall because they weren't necessarily I say very focused on utilizing technology. So I just want to be clear about that. Anecdotally, like using Zoom or using Teams, it was a very new skill. And so like I worked in higher education. We literally had to uproot all of these physical classrooms, and the medium of how we delivered them changed. So, I want to be really clear about the point that I'm making. Actively learning some of these technologies, even though you may not use them right now, they could have other implications. The individuals that I had been a part of that had already used Zoom or Teams didn't have quite the same jump as those who had never touched it before. They had no idea what it did or how it affect them or how they could protect their classroom. So it's a really good example, I think, and that's what I mean.
Awesome. So you said you're currently a VP of technology and you've been a chief information officer. So where do you see your career continuing to grow? Because those are pretty high up on the food chain there. So how do you see yourself growing in the next 5 to 10 years?
For myself, I'm interested in growing our business, help taking some of my entrepreneurial skills and leading technology teams and bringing those together. I'm passionate about helping careers move forward, and hopefully where I see myself is that we have a very robust artificial intelligence business that we've expanded out to other next generation technologies, and that I can help along other individuals who are really passionate about those same sorts of things, and give them an opportunity to shine.
Awesome. So another question for you, lots of questions today. So how did you actually get interested in computer science? So that was your starting point. How did you get into that?
Oh, that's why it's a great question, because at the point where I started computer science, there wasn't Google. You couldn't just like Google things. Technical documentation wasn't online. And I'm not it's not like I'm that old, right? Like I'm in my mid 30s which is a lot older than maybe some of the people on this call, but it is still very young in my professional career, right? And only it just tells you within a decade, there was just like since the beginning of since 2000, there's just been this explosion of technology companies that came out of nowhere, right? Amazon wasn't what it is now. Google, it wasn't and they hadn't IPO'd yet. It just like these things weren't available, and so it was a little roundabout. I was in a computer class in my high school, and we had this like we're building out some VBA scripts there, and I thought it was kind of like putting puzzles together. I mean, it's like very simple. It's as simple as that. And I thought, hey, like the software engineers get paid a lot, so why don't I go into software engineering? And it was as simple as that. Like I said before, I wasn't very organized in my thinking. It was very kind of like impulsive. I was relying a little bit too much on some of my talents rather than being like active in it. And I got lucky. So I got lucky because I love at my core, even though I'm an IT executive, I am at my core, I'm a computer scientist. I love building software. And I'm very happy that I chose the profession I did, but it could have been very wrong. And it's a lot easier to be a computer scientist now than it was, 20 years ago when I started college. Because I mean, literally, we're thumbing through like 600-page, books. You had to look up everything in a book, which is just if you have to think about that, like learning how to write computer programs by like thumbing through books or relying on books is it's slow rather than like going on Google and just saying, how do I do XYZ, So it was a computer science class, or it was a computer class in high school, and not having really much of a plan, just kind of taking a leap of faith.
That's awesome. That's my background is also, I have a bachelor's degree in computer science. So that's honestly, that's how I got here too. It's just, I was like, well, that was cool, and let's do that for school.
So the sun is a little.
I think I only have this one question left. So you mentioned how one of your big passions is helping to teach others about programming and other technology skills and things like that. And I know that you have this coding curriculum company of yours. So how does that kind of fit into your professional career, and how does that fit into the things that you really enjoy?
Well, it started at the end of my MBA. I had to put together a business plan. And it turned out that as I was going through my business plan, I asked myself, what's the thing that if I had to get up every day and do, what would I want to do? And it was literally as simple as saying, I love teaching people how to code. And unfortunately, since, at least like through COVID, I've had to put that to the side. But now I've taken on, full time into an artificial intelligence company. But there's no doubt that the premise there, like starting that business that organization came because I was interested in teaching people to be as passionate about new technologies as I have been. And it's more than even just teaching people how to code. I believe that building software is something that every person can take on, that it is valuable no matter what industry or what profession you are. There's a way to look at it. No different than like if you were using Excel, or now that we're using Teams. That program that you're building is a tool. That language is a tool. You write an essay. The words that you're using are the tools, the ingredients in order to communicate an idea. Writing a program is very similar. Writing a program is very similar because you're tasked with doing a specific job, and sometimes you need to crunch large sets of numbers, or you need to organize, or you need to sort things, or maybe you need to pull information from a website or download it and sort, filter. You can do like a bunch of different manipulations on information in order to take on maybe like a different perspective of your job. Well, I've been passionate about helping people to make that leap. That building software programs is not just for a software engineer anymore. It's meant for the finance person and the HR person, and even like, if you're in like a mechanical engineer, like there's so many different practical purposes where you don't have to build, you don't have to build like the next Facebook, but maybe you write like a few scripts that help, do like a few tasks that help make your work go faster and more efficiently. That makes you more valuable. So like the interesting thing about that skill set is that you can increase your value because you have something special you've built that other people in your profession have not. And that tool you can rely on. You can use it in unique situations that other people in your same field are almost certainly not using right now, but might in the future. Right now, there are computer science classes in high school. Now they're even pulling it into junior high, and it's becoming a federal standard. So that's really like the key in my head of how, when I think about the future of work, there are many different things that kind of roll through my head, and why that passion is important. Helping people kind of make that jump so that it's not necessarily too late. Like you're the sooner that you get over that idea earlier on in life, the easier it is going to be to apply it later on. That's a trap that people kind of run into, that, like they get later on in their career and there's this like kind of new thing, in this case, like coding, being accessible in like a very real, a very tangible way to help build value. But it can be scary learning, and it can be hard. It's not like it's not easy, but it is a way to differentiate and can be rewarding.